Mary Jane is the Iron Spider, Mark Spector meets Moon Knight, and more multimillionaire madness with Renato Jones. What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is Shelf Appeal, where I'm going to go over my new pickups for the week and give you an idea as to what's going on in the book and whether it's something you should pick up too. The first book that I picked up this week is Brutal Nature number 3. So Brutal Nature number 3 is actually a part of an ongoing little 4-part miniseries that I picked up purely to see what was going on with it. It tells the story of basically a native boy that's being encroached upon by conquistadores, that kind of situation, and he has the power to basically convert himself into any kind of bestial or animal form with the help of a mask. At this point in time, the story has kind of left me in terms of its importance or how it's being written, and it's really more about the visuals, which are really great. You know, the art style on it is very good. So I'm really kind of glad that it's a 4-part series, simply because I feel like it's lost its way a little bit. It doesn't really grab me the way that it should. And so it's not something that I can really recommend unless you want to pick up like a really good-looking 4-part mini. This is issue 3, so there's going to be one more issue after this. Next is going to be Aquaman number 2. So Aquaman number 2 is a story by Dan Abnett, and this is a book that I find myself not really caring about, to be perfectly honest with you. It's not anything in particular about the book that I feel is terribly wrong. It's just that it's not anything that I feel is interesting. The battle between Black Manta and Arthur Curry is mixed, to say the best. There's a lot of monologuing that goes in towards the final conflict, and then it ends kind of rather peacefully. And then Black Manta, it's not something that I would really recommend for anybody. After Aquaman, I have to talk about Justice League Rebirth. So Justice League Rebirth is the first Rebirth title for this Justice League book, and like the other books, it's kind of like its own one-shot piece. I found myself being distracted by the artwork in some of these instances. It just didn't necessarily mesh with the way that my brain was perceiving the story. And overall, I found like it was following a trend. And the trend was the Rebirth titles themselves were relatively weak in comparison to where the regular story goes in most of these books. Overall, Batman Rebirth was just a touch weaker than Batman number 1. Same thing with Superman Rebirth, and a bunch of other books like that are following this kind of trend. So my hopes are up for Justice League number 1, but Justice League Rebirth I don't feel is a very good transition into that. So I'm going to be interested to see where this goes. Once we finish with the Justice League, we talk about 2 of its newest members, and that is Green Lantern's number 2. I'm having a really tough time with this book. I don't necessarily know how to describe it. All I know is that it's one of those situations where I feel like it should be a better title, like it should be higher on my list, but I just don't find it resonating with me in as many ways as it possibly should, which is probably more of a fault for me, because I know that a lot of people are really enjoying this book, but it just doesn't seem to be up my alley. That's really the biggest problem here. So I can't recommend it, but that doesn't mean that you wouldn't thoroughly enjoy it. Once we finish with that, we jump into the Marvel Universe, where we're going to talk about Invincible Iron Man number 11. So this is going to be one of those situations where you have the downfalls of comic book continuity. Because in this story, you have Iron Man and James Rhodes, and it's written by Brian Michael Bendis. So what you have to do is you have to take this book and this storyline, and you have to put it like a month ago, or before that, before Free Comic Book Day. You basically have to pull everything that's happening inside this story and move it back like a month. Put this in there, and then add everything after that. So between this and the fact that Iron Man is in Amazing Spider-Man right now, and a whole bunch of the people that are involved in Civil War are locked up in Regent's Prison, that's really distracting to me. And overall, issue 12 of this book really needs to hit home the points that land in Civil War 2. Otherwise, it's just going to fall extremely flat, and I would be very disappointed in that. So let's see where this is going to go next time this book comes out. Then we go from Iron Man to a man that's a brand unto himself, and that's Mark Millar with Empress number 4. So in Empress number 4, we see Mark Millar go full throttle with how this action's supposed to go. So we find our group of people stranded on this deserted junk planet, and then the super smart son is about to create an engine that's going to get them a ship into space, and then all of a sudden these junkers are going to turn them into slaves. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on, and it's just, we went from a book where it's like, okay, there's things happening, and then it's just like, okay, we're going to go full throttle, and then we're backing it down to neutral, and then we're going to go full throttle, and then we're going to back down to 0, and then we're going to go full throttle again, and this is another moment of full throttle from Mark Millar. It's one of those things where, hey, no, that's sweet, but it still leads me further away from the kind of conclusion of the arc or the logical progression of the arc that I was really looking for. So I want to see what happens in issue, 5, 6, and 7. And 7 should be the final issue of this arc or this story in general. We don't really know. So I'm going to see how those turns kind of go in the future. So we're going to drop out of outer space and go back to Earth with Totally Awesome Hulk number 8. So Totally Awesome Hulk 8 is going to be the conclusion of this kind of Bruce Banner story arc. And what we see is that Bruce, after hugging Iron Man in the middle of a casino, is still out there roaming in the world, and he's found by Amadeus Cho. And this is kind of where we finished off with, like, a few issues ago in Totally Awesome Hulk, and we see that there's differences as to how the internal mental struggle of Bruce Banner is compared to Amadeus Cho, and how that differentiates those two Hulks. We still don't see any kind of situation that would lead up to what we saw in the Civil War II issue, where Captain Marvel is going to talk to Bruce Banner about this whole vision of Ulysses. So that's really probably going to happen in next issue, and you kind of see the cover and the back half of that, which is going to give you an idea as to where things are going. Overall, I really like it. I like the way Greg Pak writes the Hulk. I think that it's probably one of the best characterizations you can put out there of him. And even writing Amadeus Cho, it's still a very good story. So I'm going to continue reading this one. It might not be for everybody, but it's a book I really like. Then we leave one desert for another one, and we go to New Egypt. Well, actually, it's New York, where Mark Spector's, he's escaping from this mental institution, and we see him and his, kind of merry band of men who are escaping this get picked off kind of one by one. And if you've seen any kind of, schizophrenic kind of movies, I think there's one with John Cusack. I'll pop the movie poster of it up there on the side. If you've seen movies like this or seen stories like this, you'll realize that this isn't necessarily a new take on the way that this is being told, but overall the artwork is extremely complimentary, and we see a final showdown that's going to be happening in this next final issue. So this is the penultimate, this is the lead up to the final conflict and the resolution of this storyline before Jeff Lemire starts going on his storytelling way with the Moon Knight character. And overall, it's a great setup. It really gives you a lot of backstory. It gives other characters acceptance, and I really like the way this book is going. So it's definitely a recommendation from me. Then we move on to a book that's just outside my top 5, and that's Green Arrow number 2. So Green Arrow number 2 is kind of this conclusion of the twist ending that we saw in Green Arrow number 1. And you see everything crumble around Oliver Queen while he's gone for 2 weeks. Everything has been put in motion, and overall, he goes from, to coin a phrase from Hercules, he goes from hero to zero, just like that. And you're going to see a dirtier, grittier, but still hopeful and positive Oliver Queen in this. I hope it doesn't go too kind of sideways with the character, because I was really enjoying the way that he was set up previously. Then we get into the top 5, and in the top 5 we start off with Superman number 2. So Superman number 2 is a continuation of the story where we see Jonathan, after this whole fiasco with the cat, and his dad, Superman, go out and they try to save this icebreaker submarine that's caught in an ice floe. And it's really kind of treated as a instructional and teaching moment by Superman to kind of help his son focus on his powers and how he's growing as a person. So this is where you get to see how Clark is going to go beyond the original Ma and Pa Kent, and how he can help develop his child, because he's been in that same kind of situation before. But then when we see at the end of the book is that there are some things that are distinctly different. So maybe he's not quite as impervious. Maybe he doesn't have the ability of control. How is he going to face those kind of things? And then we also see an introduction of another character from way back in the day, and I'm really interested to see how this plays out. Overall, Peter J. Tomasi does a great job with this book. It's a very personal kind of Superman storyline, and I'm really excited to see how that plays out. There's this really cool panel that's in there, and it's Super Dad, Super Son, and they're like fresh off of what they just completed as a mission, so to speak, and I really like the way that plays out. Then part 2 of the I Am Gotham storyline continues with Batman number 2. So we see Gotham and Gotham Girl taking on Solomon Grundy, and that's really how the book kind of gets introduced. And then you just see Batman being pure Batman. So as this conflict kind of settles down, Batman arrives, even though it's after these primary heroes, and just absolutely destroys Solomon Grundy. And then he takes that as a point of emphasis. It's just like, the way that you are currently flying, you would take 1.3 seconds for you to, apprehend Solomon Grundy. This man would have been trampled 0.7 seconds, in 0.7 seconds. You're good. Be better. And then he hops onto a train and fucking takes off. And that's That was just like the most Batman thing that you could do, other than what he does later on in the book, which is pretty badass too. Even, he's impervious to ultravision, evidently. And I love Tom King's Batman. I really like the way that he writes it. He's got a very kind of serpentine style of writing, so it's got these ups and downs and lefts and rights, and it's very much chaos, a cone of chaos that goes and funnels towards a finale. So I really like the way that it's going. Batman is a must-read for everybody. Next is one of the hottest books of the week, and that is Amazing Spider-Man 15. And primarily, it's really hot because of this cover, and I have to say the cover is really hot simply because of what it implies. And the story follows up with it very well, too. It's the finale of the Power Play saga, and we see the conclusion of Regent's plan for these heroes and how he kind of gets taken down. Mary Jane's badass, and then there's some really cool homages to Dan Slott and how well he knows continuity. He's like, oh yeah, she put on the Iron Man suit in the other. She had spider powers in Spider Island. It's like, yeah, man, we know that you know a lot about Spider-Man. And then ultimately the whole collector community, and when he breaks Miles Morales out of the tube, it's just like, oh man, he's no longer new mint in the box. And I thought that was really funny because I collect comic books and cards and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, no, this one definitely is redeeming Spider-Man for me simply because I didn't really connect very well with the whole Rise of Scorpio storyline. This one puts it back on the map, and I hope it kind of continues through Dead No More, Clone Conspiracy, because clone is a very dirty word in the Spider-Man universe. So I'm really excited to see how he can redeem that whole concept. Once we're done with Spider-Man, we jump into a surprise number 2 pick, and that is Civil War II, Kingpin Issue 1. So Matthew Rosenberg, he's writing a story from the perspective of various villains, and overall, Wilson Fisk is going to be using the Inhumans against themselves. It's very interesting how he kind of writes this character. The art for the first story is extremely complementary to the perspective because you see these heroes in a very characterized way. The whole Hawkeye pouring tons of sugar into his coffee was very interesting. It's a very different perspective, and you see how these villains kind of put the twist on the heroes instead of the heroes putting the twist on the villains. I really like the way that that's set out. Then you also see Kingpin put some jab at some of the heroes, like Spectrum, who used to be Captain Marvel and is no longer Captain Marvel, is now Spectrum because this blonde white lady took over her character, and Sam Wilson, who's wearing somebody else's suit. And oh man, there's just so many on the nose but perfectly perspective comments that go into it. I really enjoyed the way it was being written, and it's probably the only tie-in other than the Spider-Man tie-ins that I'm going to be picking up for Civil War 2, simply because it's good. I really like it. Yeah, no, it's definitely something that you should pick up if you weren't considering it, just to see how it's going to go out. And then finally we get to my most recommended book of the week, and that is Renato Jones #1. No, actually, it's not Renato Jones #1. That's just a third printing. So you'll have to guess that it's Renato Jones #3. So Renato Jones, super surprise, super favorite book. Punisher-style vengeance with a Batman-style budget is probably the easiest way that I can describe it. And this book, it kind of takes a step back from the ultra-violence that's been in the first 2 issues. He takes his foot off the throttle a little bit, wants us to dial back. Even though it's not Renato committing acts of violence, you still see some very visceral things in there. But overall, it's definitely a mature book. It's kind of... actually, in the letters section, Carr Andrews says it himself. This is cathartic. It is a way for you to personify your feelings and identify with those, which is what a lot of people seem to be doing, or at least what I've been reading about it. And what I feel myself is like there's a lot of ways to identify with this, and your whole... You basically can put yourself in the place of this character emotionally in a lot of different senses, and you feel like a sense of gratification and justification. So he's definitely given me what I want, and that's why I like the book so much. If you want to read this kind of story, go pick up the third printing. If you can find the second print, go pick up Renato Jones, period. I love it. I can't recommend it enough. So those are all the books I picked up this week. I wasn't able to grab all the #1s, but overall, I'm really excited about what I had a chance to read. But I want to hear what you had a chance to read too, so hit me up in the comments with what you picked up and what you thought about them. As always, if you like what you see, hit that like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.